And there are these beautiful beams of light. And this beam approaches me and says, "Hello, Billy." And it is my brother's voice that passed away 24 years before that. My brother Peter passed away when I was about 16 years old, and he was 30. And he died from a cancer. And I remember saying, "Hello, Peter." I remember my spirit saying that, and I felt such an embrace. The light came into each other. The embrace was so beautiful. The love even increased from what it was. It seemed the closer you were to other spirits, the more love you felt.
I'm here today with Bill Tortorella. Bill, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited to have you as my guest.
Thank you, Tia. Thanks for having me.
So, while working at a trade show in Tucson, Arizona in 1994, a horrible virus broke out, and many people, including you, Bill, became extremely ill. And you had a near death experience as a result of this virus. Can you tell me
Right.
about that?
Well, uh, I set up for this trade show every single year. I've been doing it for I was in that. I was in the business. I had a jewelry business, so I sold watches and jewelry and things like that. We're in Tucson, Arizona, doing the biggest gem and mineral show in the world, actually. But there was a lot of jewelry people there as well, and the whole city becomes a show, and it's in February. And in February, you got everything running around: the flus, the viruses, colds. People from all over the world come to this show. I mean, you meet people from Asia, Europe, Africa, South America, all literally all over the world. They come to buy their stones. So, all the vendors from all over the world come. They're actually, the whole city is set up as a show, not just in the convention center. All the hotel ballrooms are filled up with vendors selling. And now I'm working the show. We're into the show about 3 days now. It was the third day because I noticed since the first day, there was a lot of people, walking around coughing and things like that. But on the third day, I was working my booth and I had several people working with me there. And the lady across the way, she just happens to collapse right in front of me. I'm watching her across the road and she just goes right down on the floor. So prior to my business that I opened in 1980, I was a paramedic from 1973 to 1980. So I used to be a paramedic down in Miami. So my paramedic skills kicked in. I went running over, to make sure she was all right. And soon as I touched her, she was burning up. She was hot. And I just tried to make her comfortable and keep her airway open so she could breathe properly. I just wanted to make it so when the paramedics got there, she was still, okay. Paramedics arrived, took her away, and we went about our day. That night, it got bad. I started getting this thing where what a lot of people had the whole week, and nobody knew what it was. They didn't know if it was viral. They didn't know if it was bacterial. It was just kind of, we thought it was a terrible, terrible flu. Uh, People were trying to scare people and tell people it looks like the Hunter virus because people are getting very, very sick, very ill. But it was actually, I don't think it was actually ever identified what the illness physically was. So that night I became ill. It was horrible. I had my throat, I couldn't breathe. It swelled up so quickly. And I have a hard time at night anyway because I sleep with a CPAP machine. And being though now I do sleep with a CPAP machine, but back in those days I didn't know I had sleep apnea at the same time. So now I have a throat that's basically could hardly get any air in it. It's hard for me to breathe. I'm getting a fever and I'm finding myself getting hotter and hotter. I remember going up to the hallway in the hotel, filling the bucket of ice and just putting my head in the ice in the sink, to try to cool off a little bit. First thing in the morning, I wake up, I was even worse. I got dressed up and I went down to the show and there was just sweat pouring down from me all over. And the people that worked for me said, "Bill, you look terrible. You have to get yourself to the hospital. So I went ahead and I went to the hospital at that time. At the time I get to the hospital's filled. The emergency room is filled with people. And they stated that, they were so busy, they couldn't basically get to everybody. There was a lot of people coming down with whatever it was, actually. And they asked us if we'd go to different medical centers around town. So what I did is I say, I would go, and they send out different, we went in different groups with people. And I remember getting to the medical center, they took me right in. They said, as soon as they got me on the gurney, got me inside, the doctors, the nurses were there. It was good because there was people that could take care of us there. And they said my oxygen levels were very bad. So they put me on oxygen right away. And then they checked my skin, and they lifted up my skin on my hand. It was like just a tent that just stood up in the air. And I was so dehydrated. They said, your body's completely dehydrated. So they hooked me up with IVs. And now they got the IV bags running into me. They're coming over. Every bag they come over and shoot some solution into it. And, I asked them what it is. They said, well, they're starting courses of antibiotics because they don't know what this is. Like I said, they didn't know if this was bacterial or viral or whatever it was. So remember, now I'm not in a hospital. I'm at a medical center that closes at about whatever, I forgot the time it closed there, 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening or whatever. So they let us stay there all till that time. And by that time rolled around, I was feeling a little better because I was full of fluids again. My oxygen was back up. I still had a fever, but it wasn't as high as when I came in. And they gave me a bottle of antibiotics and an inhaler. And they told me to take the inhaler a couple of times until later that night when I went to sleep, and take the antibiotic about 4 or 5 hours, because they said I had enough antibiotic in me until then. So I think I remember taking a last antibiotic about midnight, and I took the inhaler. I remember that. And then, I fell off to sleep. And that night turned into a night of light and love, I call it. So it was magnificent. I mean, I actually remember, I'm going to tell you, one of the most profound near-death experiences you ever heard. I remember leaving my body exactly how I left my body. Now, I've learned a lot of things since that happened, because I never knew about a near-death experience. It was 1994. I've never even heard of a near-death experience. But I left my body with, I thought, and I saw myself physically leaving my body in this beautiful glowing mist through my eyes. And I remember just being completely out of my body, floating above my body. And now I recognize it as a pineal gland. They call that the third eye, supposedly. That's probably where I left from. But for me, it was through my eyes. And now I'm floating above the body, and I am completely detached. There's no me down there anymore. I'm just up here, and I'm looking at this body. I'm completely alive in this mist. I'm more aware than I've ever felt. And I don't know if I could say my lifetime, but I'm aware of things going around, everything that's happening. I'm looking at that body, and it's like I'm analyzing the body, looking at it, saying that body is completely in a cumbersome position. And soon as I said that body is dead, I remember actually physically saying that in my mind, my spirit, my being. And soon as I said that, this beam lit from behind me and lit up all underneath me. I no longer saw the body. It physically turned me around almost immediately, this light, and this magnificent gateway opens up. I'm saying this is beautiful beam of light. It is gateway, and it draws me in so quickly. I have no control over it. Nothing. I have nothing, Tia. I mean, it just had complete control over me. And now I'm in this beautiful, magnificent tunnel. And this tunnel is made up of beautiful, beautiful colors. The colors are fluorescent, and the fluorescents are, I was in this magnificent mist, this green mist. To me, it looked like the color of a fern in the springtime, but magnified hundreds and hundreds of times. That was my color, my being color, my spirit's color. And now I'm in this tunnel that's made up of amazing colors that I'm already starting to move. And now I'm moving faster and faster, and I'm feeling something completely different now. This love is grown within my spirit so strong. I feel this love growing as I'm moving, and I'm moving, and it's incredible because I'm feeling nothing but love and protected. I didn't know where the protection was coming from, but I am feeling love, protected, almost like I was cradled, being taken through the cosmos. And I feel like I'm seeing nebulas and star system, and it's magnificent. It's totally magnificent. I'll never forget my arrival. This my arrival, which I'll call home, and my home to me is heaven. I believe in God and Jesus Christ. And I remember being around what I believed family and friends, my spirit family and friends. And then I hear this beautiful, soft voice say to me, "Yes, Bill, you're home in the light of God." And that voice was so, it made me, my whole spirit so relaxed and so fulfilled inside. She said, "My name is Antonia, and I am one of your spirit guides." And I said, she also said, she was with me on the way home. I said, "I didn't realize you were with me." But now, remember what I said about feeling protected? I believe she was the one that was protecting me. She was guiding me home. And that was amazing. She told me that was her. That's what she was there for. That was her job. She was responsible for bringing me in and bringing me home. And when I got there and I said, "I'm home. I'm finally home. Thank God I'm home." I said it over and over and over again. And then she said, "Yes, you're home." And you have two other spirit guides. Along when she said she had the two other spirit guides, I feel a presence of family and friends around me. Like I said, it was magnificent and greeting. The magnificent part about it, it's so advanced. You know what everybody's saying and thinking because it's all in your own mind. And it's amazing because the capability of our mind's usage here, I think, is somewhere around, we can possibly, if we're very intelligent people, use 6, 7%, possibly 8. I think you might have close to 100% of what the mind could actually do, and your actual spirit. Because now, don't forget, you're pure energy. You're pure energy. You're a bundle of light and love, and you feel all this love. It's so amazing. So when I said, I'm home, finally home. And she told me about my second and third guardian. And she said that she was the one, and she explained what she did. I hear another guardian, I see another guardian approaching me, this beautiful being, another beautiful beam of light. They're beams. I'm still a floating mist at this time. And they're these beautiful beams of light. And this beam approaches me and says, "Hello, Billy." And it is my brother's voice that passed away 24 years before that. My brother Peter passed away when I was about 16 years old, and he was 30. And he died from a cancer. And I remember saying, "Hello, Peter." I remember my spirit saying that, and I felt such an embrace. The light came into each other. The embrace was so beautiful. The love even increased from what it was. It seemed the closer you were to other spirits, the more love you felt. And this embrace was beautiful, so I enjoyed this for a little bit. It was wonderful. And then he says, "We have to leave." And I didn't know where we were going, what was happening. He says, basically, you're going for a life review. I did not know what a life review is. I never heard of a life review, so I didn't know what to expect. But we just automatically off into another beautiful illuminated area. And now they start showing me things. They start showing me all my life is flickering in front of me. My own life. I'm part of the scene. It's amazing. And it would bring me from scene to scene in my own physical life. And I'm seeing myself as a young boy. I mean, 9, 10 years old. I remember taking to my in 1963, I was taking my friends and we were going to the World's Fair up in Queens. And in those days, you know, you were 10, 11 years old. You got on the subways yourself and took off, went to another town and everything. It was wonderful. I had a group of friends with me. We had a great time. And the beauty is that taking me from one thing to another, showing me the times I had with them. My mom and dad was okay position. We weren't rich, you know, by any means. We weren't rich. We were comfortable. My mom owned a bar and grill across the street from Ebbets Field where the Brooklyn Dodgers played, and my dad was president of local 804. It was a United Parcel. He was president of the Teamsters Union for United Parcel. He brought United Parcel in the Teamsters Union in 1940. So, you know, financially, we did okay. My mom would give me some money and I would take my friends along because they weren't as basically, I call it lucky at the time, you know. So I shared that with them and that was beautiful. And one thing to another, they take me from there. I remember being in things in my teens and in school. In my high school, I remember winning, you know, awards because I went to art and design high school in Manhattan. I remember winning this award for our end of the year project at our senior year. And our art instructor, and now this is taking me right into my class. I'm speaking to my art instructor like I'm there. And he tells me, you have a project to do. And this was early into the term. And we had the whole semester to finish it. And we're going to do a storyboard concept to take. So a storyboard is like a commercial. You would set up a commercial, and we used to do it in the old days. They used to draw pictures of each little scene, how it looked. So he says, you all pick a scene. He told the whole class to pick what you want to do, a story. And I picked the story of Jesus Christ. And I decided to paint. It was a lot of storyboards we have to do. I think we did a total of 17 storyboards or so. And these storyboards, I depicted Jesus's life from his birth into his crucifixion. And what happened is I wound up taking a nice award for that. And it was shown in the streets in the city. So they're showing me all this good. And then they take me to a scene. When I was 21, I got married, moved to Miami, and I couldn't get a job in my field. So I became a paramedic. And taking me to this scene. Now, this is all good stuff. It's not scary stuff. I'm not saying this to scare anybody or anything like that. I'm in the unit with my partner. It's showing me a scene now from when we picked up our unit downtown Miami and we were stationed in North Miami Beach. And we're on I-95. And on the way up to our station in the morning. And a call comes over the radio that says 317. That means it's an emergency accident. And the accident was on 135th Street and I-95. We were already on 95 on about 95th Street already. So we're less than 2 miles away. And we're going 60, 70 miles an hour. And I say, we'll take that call off 69F. This is 67F. We're going to take this call. And We get to the scene less than 2 minutes. So our ETA was right there. The only one was there was Highway Patrol, one car. Her car is demolished. The young girl and her brother was in the first car, and it slammed into the back of a pickup truck. Totally demolished. The man was sitting in the pickup truck and never came out. I saw the boy, the brother, running around the scene of the accident, and he was running. He had looked like he was bleeding from his face. So this is the days where a lot of people didn't wear seatbelts. So I take the medic bag out. We go running towards him. My partner and I, we only saw him. And then as soon as we got by him, he said, my sister, and he goes to point like this. And we both look over, and his sister's head is literally through the windshield of the car. So we had jumped right over there. We had to assess it really quick. The fire trucks wasn't there yet. We were the only unit there. Head injuries bleed a lot. So she would have bled to death if we would have left her on the window. So we had to assess it. We both looked at each other and says, let's get her off this thing. We got her off. I got from the outside and helped put the top part of her head inside, because the window was actually dug up into the back of her skull. And he was on the inside getting her ready to be put on the stretcher. So we both picked her up out of the car now, put her on the stretcher, bring her in the unit. I'm trying to hold a bandage on her head, and her brother's sitting in the back of the unit with me. And now her body starts to physically seize. So her body is physically jumping off the unit. There's so much blood loss. I can't even bandage her head up. So all I have is my hand cradled under her neck, and I have my other hand on top of her head, trying to stop some of the blood from coming out. Now she's out cold. She's completely out cold, but her body's in a seizure. Then her body finally starts settling down. I screamed, God help me, during this, when this was happening. And I was yelling at the brother to come help me hold her legs down, because I don't know if you know, ever saw a person that's having a seizure, but the whole body could, physically. And she wasn't doing well. So I actually needed some help back there. And he did. Now we bring it to the hospital. Everybody's waiting they take her right into the emergency room. We go off to our station. We get cleaned up. We put new uniforms on and do our 24-hour day there. The problem for me was all I could do is think about that young girl the whole day long. And everybody starts saying to me, Bill, forget it. She lost too much blood. She's not alive. She's not alive. And in the middle of the night, right before about an hour and a half before we were supposed to get up to go back to the station the next morning, I wake my partner up. I had no sleep that night. He probably had about 2 hours, because we were running pretty much the whole part of the day. I said, Danny, we have to go back to Parkway General where we dropped her off. And oh my gosh, Bill, he says, we can't go back. First of all, she's dead. It's out of the way. I said, Danny, you got to go. You have to go. He finally agreed with me. So we got in the unit. I woke him up early. We got there quickly to Parkway General. It was like 6-7 miles out of the way, and 6-7 miles out of the way coming back. We walk in the emergency room. I speak to one of the young ladies I know. I think her name was, the nurse name was Becky, I think, because we knew all the nurses at mostly all the emergency rooms, because we were in and out of different hospitals all day long. And I said to Becky, how'd that young lady turn out that we brought in yesterday? And she says, you want to meet her? And when she said that, I was thrilled. I was thrilled. She says, follow me. And she took us up to her room. And the young girl was 17 years old. She's sitting up in her bed. She's eating Jell-O. She's got a big turban on top of her bed. Her whole head is bandaged, but her face is out. She's only got little scratches on her face. And I looked at her and I say to myself, thank God her face didn't get. This young lady was so so lucky. Her brother pops up out of the seat in the corner and screams at his sister, "This is the man that saved your life." And it was just a thrilling moment. And she was so lucky, may I add, at the same time, because the window pierced her head, yes, and went all the way back, but it basically scalped her. So the top part of her head was flipped out, but we couldn't tell, because of the fatty tissue and everything underneath and all the blood. It was just impossible to tell. So from there, after they showed me a few more good things, they take me to the bad parts of life and bad things we do, or the wrong things we do. And this part is not as pleasant as the good side. I mean, they show you the hurt you've done to everything, everyone. I know, I'll never forget till it got to the point where, I mean, I never did anything really bad. And as a kid growing up, we all do stupid things, or get in trouble, or do the wrong things, or whatever. But when I was married to my first wife and my newborn child, not newborn, about 2 years old at this point, and I leave, I literally became their pain. I physically felt. I didn't only feel it, I physically became the pain. Your spirit feels this pain so compounded. It was terrible. And I remember almost right after that, they showed me 2 more things, and I was screaming, "Please forgive me, dear God, forgive me." I said that over and over several times. And all of a sudden, this whole gray drops, and I'm back in spirit form. Meanwhile, in my life review, they're showing me, I see my whole physical at all ages, all through the life review, in different areas of my life, and the bad times and the good times. And that was amazing because it was like a flickering screen, and it was unbelievable. You're part of every scene. And that's the first time I realized that I had a physical body again. Because for a while there, from my death part, after that light turned me into the gateway, at the beginning I explained, I had no memory left of my being itself here on earth, I'll call it. Only my heavenly family and body that I know. And our families travel with us, our spirit circle. So when I say families and friends, they're all around us throughout the millennia. We live and live. We keep on living. We never die. We go on, I call it, they're almost like missions that we take on. We take on these challenges to increase the wealth, and I call wealth not as in a monetary form, but wealth in spirit. The wealth in spirit, we increase our spirit's wealth, because on here, on this plane, earthly plane, this is where we basically feel. On the other side, you feel, but the only feeling you have is one of love, service, kindness, and being. On this side, we feel the pain, the sadness, the sorrow, the physical pain. On that side, we have no feeling of that. But in your life review, you feel that emotional pain so badly. I mean, besides getting into little scuffles when I was a kid, little fights, you feel that little pain, but I don't know what people would feel if they were like a real bad person. And I'm not saying they're not going to come out of their life review, but that would be a hell of a bad place to stay. I wouldn't want to stay there at that point, because when I was begging for forgiveness, I mean, that hurt I caused on my family felt like it destroyed me inside. So my spirit hurt. It was that bad. So now the greatness is all down. We're back in spirit form. Antonia is with me. Pete is with me. Antonia says to me, look at yourself, Bill. And I looked at myself, and now I'm this beautiful beam. I'm a beam. My spirit turns into a beam of light, just like theirs. I'm a shimmering, and it's like radiant, and it's got the energy is flowing through it. And I'm one of these beams like them, and I'm feeling home and at life. And then my third guide comes in, and Peter announces Oren. Now, soon as he came within, I say, a close proximity to me, I knew Oren. Oren's been with me my whole life. You know, they always say, people say we have an angel sitting on our shoulder. Well, Oren is the angel of our intuition, our time when we have one thought and something inside you is telling you, this is not the right way. This is the way. And it's telling you over and over again, you have to listen to those warnings because they're so important in our lifetime. So Oren is my guardian angel of my intuition, my whole life. And he was a great master spirit or angel. I don't know. I call them my guardian angels. But he was a master spirit angel. He had knowledge that was so abundant. His knowledge was radiating through me. I felt his knowledge. And it was amazing because I felt his length. What I mean by length, I felt his time. He must have been thousands upon thousands of years old. We all go on through different lives and different experiences. And it's our choice. This is our choice to come back. Our choice is to come back and do whatever they are, projects or all lessons that we have to learn to make our spirits grow in abundance, to where we become like, I explain it very simple. When we become like God here on earth, then we reach the point where we no longer have to come back. Well, we never have to come back, but we could stay at a certain level on the other side. That's the feelings that I've gotten from them on the other side. We're never forced to come back, but we choose to come back. We choose our situations that we come into. We choose the path of life that we have. We choose our parents. So we choose our physical situation. We know our physical situation. That's why we have deja vu sometimes during our lifetime. That's why the deja vu appears, because we know the physical situation before we come in, but everything's wiped out. So everything is new to you, and you have no memory once you're born again of that, of your spiritual realm. You have no memory of your spiritual side and your family. That's, I guess, purposely done so we could grow while we're here. Our spirit grows through a process of choices. The choices we make in our lifetime this is how our spirits grow with abundance to a level, like I said, almost we want our levels to be like God. We want kindness. We want to be able to forgive. We have to forgive. We have to learn how to forgive people in life. We could never go over. It's so important I get this one thing across because I felt something over the other side. We never go in over with any hatred in our heart for anybody or anything. Hate is not belong on the other side. So that's one thing I'd like to show your people that are going to watch this. Try not to bring along hate with you. And there's another very, very important thing. And I call it the in-between before I get to the final two stages. I call it the in-between. I've never told this on any of my other podcasts. And I realized this for a second time because I almost died again in the hospital getting an operation where I was in the in-between world. And I want people to know this because it's so important. You've heard things before, like people see, oh, that's grandma, or that's my husband. And please, please, folks, go along with them. That they see their husband, they see that whoever they say they're seeing, because they are seeing them. This is what they do. They send us relief to bring us over. They say they put us in a position so we're not in shock. So they send our family members to us. Basically, whether they're our family members or not, they appear like our family members in spirit. And they are for them. So we should be always with them. If somebody is passing away in your families and they see a family relative or some other friend or whatever the situation, try to be on their side because it's very important. I recognize this in my last hospital operation that I've had. I had about 8 operations in the last 4, 5, 6 years. And I was in waiting room for 12 hours before they got me into the operation. And I think my blood sugar spike dropped low. I almost, went into a coma into the thing. And I was in the in-between. I remember that. I call it the in-between now. And it's not the veil. I call it the in-between. That's the part where people think they see somebody or hear something. All I heard very faintly, and the nurse was screaming, "Doctor, doctor, doctor, he's going, he's going, he's going." And I could hear very faintly at the end because I was almost at the other side. I already felt that love. That love came right back to me. That same exact love I was in 30 years ago. This just happened last year when I had kidney stones had to get removed. But they kept me and they didn't let me eat I didn't eat for 28 hours now, 30 hours. I didn't eat nothing. My blood sugar must have dropped to nothing. And I was going. She said my blood pressure spiked up so high. She said you were going to die. She told me that after they got me back to normal and they held me, stabilized me before they brought me into the operation then. But always be with the people if they have that in their life. Okay, so now Oren's with me, Peter's with me, Antonia's with me. Oren says to me, we're going one more level. And what he does, they bring me to this magnificent place. I call it the Hall of Events. You hear Akasha Records and folks speaking like that. Mm-hmm. I didn't know the name Akasha Records. So in my first book, while I was writing it, I called it the Hall of Events. I didn't find out about Akasha Records till 2010 or 11. Well, the Hall of Events to me was like an enormous, beautiful crystal theater. It was totally magnificent. It was beautiful. And our beams, our spirits are there in pure energy. So we're reflecting off these crystals and it looks like the universe around us. And the universe is creating life. There's explosions going on. It's magnificent. It's just beautiful. And now now I see myself, only 2 times do you see yourself that I saw myself in human form in my body. And one was in my life review and one was in the Hall of Events. And this is where they're showing me not my history, but the world's history. They're showing me things. They've took me back. I must have been started off in World War II way before I was born. Way, way before I was born. And I remember explosions. I mean, physical explosions now I'm talking about. I'm talking about bombs going off. Maybe it was World War II. Maybe it was Hiroshima. Maybe it was the other town that was blown up in Japan. I'm not sure. I remember being in that part of the war. I thought at times I was in another war. That could have been Korea. This was all before I was born. And then it took me to the part where I'm physically born. Now, I wasn't a part of any of those wars because I wasn't born yet. I mean, I've had family in those wars. But I don't know, was I there? I'm not sure about that. So that's interesting. I don't know why I started back there, seeing that. Anyway, it took me past I saw my birth. I went right past my birth. It took me, it's moving quickly now. Time is moving quickly, and it takes me all the way through. I was born in 52. It took me to 1963. It took me to JFK's shooting. I remember being in my classroom. We used to have a speaker on the wall in every classroom in the schools back in the day. And the principal gets on it, and everybody's wondering what the principal is on, late in the morning. And he says, I want everybody to know that JFK, our president of the United States, was just shot and killed in Dallas, Texas. And it was a somber moment for everyone. I mean, everyone loved JFK at the time. It was horrible. So I walked home from school. I remember getting into my home, and there my mother was sitting on the kitchen table with a lady by the name of Christine, my second mom, I call her, because she's the one that brought me up. My mother owned a bar and grill, and she was the cook so she had to start cooking early in the morning for lunch in the restaurant part of the bar. And she was the big cook, and Christine was the lady that would come in and watch me. And in my house, they were always singing going on. So when I went home, they were crying at the table. And it sounded like in my house, my mother sang with big bands like Tommy Dorsey at one time. Christine sounded like the movie Lady Sings the Blues with Diana Ross. Christine had an unbelievable voice. She was beautiful, and my mother's voice was beautiful. They were just wonderful. And so I'm seeing all these things in the whole events. Then I see different things that happen, all things in sequence. Martin Luther King, Bobby. I see everything happen. The Vietnam War. I see the Vietnam War coming down. I see the helicopters coming and landing on the roof in Vietnam, taking the last people off. And I remember from there passing, and I'm moving again. We're moving again. We're moving again. We're moving in this flickering sequence. It's amazing. It's almost like a newsreel that's flickering at speeds like a computer. And then you stop and you're in a physical scene. Well, we go right up to my birth, and it's showing me my birth. I mean, my near-death experience, not my birth, excuse me. Showing me my near-death experience. It's showing me my near-death experience and me passing away, and then it's passing that now. So it's passing me, and now I'm going into the future. Now it stops at what I know is 9/11, because I'm sitting at the Twin Towers, at the base of Twin Towers with my guides, and there's nothing but ash and rubble and smoke all around, and people running, and now you have to understand, I'm from New York City. I have a lot of friends in those buildings. I instantly start to run towards the buildings. You couldn't see anything. And I'm yelling, my friends, and they grab me, and I remember them grab me now, because we're physical now. We're still spiritual, and we don't have real bodies, but it feels like you have a real body at the time. You see yourself in a real body. I remember being grabbed and said, Bill, you can't do anything. And stop for a minute. They told me to stop. And I stopped. I said, my friends. I said it again. And they said, Bill, what do you see? And don't forget, it's all black smoke. It's all people just peering in front of you, like a couple inches in front of you, because you can't see yet. People can't see. People can't see. But when they said, what do you see? I says, I see everything. I saw right through the clouds of smoke, right through everything. He says, that's because we're not here. And that, I couldn't fathom all this stuff. This part was amazing. From there, we're in the sequence again, and we're moving faster into the future. In the future, the next time it stops again, and then there's bombs again going off. And now I believe I'm in Baghdad, because I can only think that was the second bombings that I know of that were that bad. And I recognized what people were wearing, that it must have been when in two years later in Baghdad, when Baghdad was after 9/11, it was 2 years after that when Baghdad was being bombed. Instinctively, I started to run again. And of course, they told me you don't have to run. And I didn't. And from there, it took me to what I believe these times are now. And what's so important we have to understand is that the reason why I've done all this is because I've seen all these patterns happen 30 years ago. And I remember exactly what happens now. I remember two phases of the now. And the first phase I'm going to tell you about is not very good. It's not very good because it's a place beyond this time. I don't know how long beyond this time, but it's a place that reminds you of the movie Mad Max. So bad, where people are literally stealing, killing, feeding off each other like it's like for nothing. They kill for water, a case of water. I mean, it's so bad. People can't get food. They can't get the basic staples in life, and it's horrible. And it's basically all torn apart. And we'll live in a very scary, scary future. Then it shows me another plane. It shows me a utopia plane that is so beautiful, it's hard to comprehend. So here I'm going from something like Mad Max into a place of complete spirituality, of love, kindness, respect, service. I love again. I'm going to keep saying love. It was so beautiful. That life on this side was so beautiful. So I believe what they show, you see on different planes. There were several planes in between. And the amazing things, you could see these different planes and be in these different sequences at the same time. But those were the two that stood out the most to me, the two that I was brought to. So I know it's going to be one or the other. I know in my heart that it's going to be the other. We're going towards the utopia side, the beauty, the love. And that part is magnificent. And then it finalized up with the last part where they brought me in front of a group of angels. It was like a panel of white glowing lights. All of us others had color about us. But this panel of angels was so vast amount of knowledge and wisdom within them that it was amazing. It was amazing. They showed me thoughts, principles. They showed me the beginning of life, the combustion, how we all start out. We start in the universe from magnificent stars that explode and turn into nebula clouds. God inflames the nebula clouds with brilliance of light and energy, and that turns us into life. Our life begins in heaven. We wind up going back and forth to heaven all the time. I believe we're star people. They're so magnificently knowledgeable with a wisdom that is so strong, because they're giving me 9 principles of enlightenment at this time, that I'm being bombarded with these principles over and over and over again. And they're just beautiful principles. They're basic cores of principles just to keep us on the road. They keep us on this road of uniting, where everyone is united and everything becomes love. And the stress is no longer there. The hardness is no longer there. Like I said, we're in ascension time right now. This ascension that we're in right now is very big, very strong. This time frame we're in right now only happens once every couple hundred years on this earth. So I believe we're in that ascension time frame. We're going to wind up there. The 9 principles are wonderful. The principles of intuition, the principles of choices. The first principle is very important, so I'll go over a few of these real quick because we've been on for a while now. But the first one is just like the first part of the Ten Commandments. You can't take a life. The reasoning why we can't take a life is a little different than we just think right off the bat. Not only that it's wrong, but if we happen to take a life, now I'm not saying you can't defend yourself. I'm not saying this. You have the right of self-defense, but you're not supposed to take other people's life paths away from them. Their life path is so important that they complete that journey. So you're not supposed to interfere with other people's life paths because you have no idea if you just happen to, for example, kill someone, what their grandchild could have done, what their great-grandchild could have done. You have no idea if they were the person that made the cure, the real cure for cancer. And there's no cancer anymore on this earth. So we can't change anyone's life path, and they don't have the right to change yours. The choices are so important. The second principle, God gives us He gives us one thing that we bring over with us, and that's choice. That's our gift from God. We have to, in our lifetime, try to make the right choices because that's when you're on your life path. That's when you're on your right journey. Now, people veer. And that you might ask yourself, why? Why do people so mean, killing, destruction, create things that might hurt people, Why would they do that? That's because they veered way off their life path. It's either people that are not listening to their intuition or something physical is getting in their mind that are bringing them in another direction. So that's very important because the choices we make in life are going to determine our outcome, our planet's outcome, and everything in between. Now, there's principles of love, and there's principles of enlightenment, and there's principles of the earth itself. These 9 principles are very interesting and very important to read. I remember a beautiful spirit coming to me and saying to me, you must return. You have the 9 principles of enlightenment. Do you understand? I says, yes, I fully understand the 9 principles. He said, you must return. I remember literally fighting for my life to stay. I wanted to stay so badly. I did not want to come back here because I remember now what back here was at this point because they showed it to me twice. I did not want to come back here. I wanted to be in my spirit world with my spirit family. I wanted to be in that love. And it's nothing that gets old. It's brand new every, I don't know if they call it days or whatever it's called on the other side, but nothing ever gets old. That's the beauty of it. It's so brilliant. It's so loving. It's so much kindness, helping, service, forgiveness. It just goes on and on. Now, right before this happened, one of the beautiful glowing white angels that came to me with a number sequence. I left that off on purpose to this time. They showed me these numbers that were so, he came into me and these numbers were just floating down in front of me. And the 1s were lighting, the 8s were lighting. The 9s, the 6s, the 3s were all lighting up, crystal forms. They were like little crystal lights just flowing down straight in lines and crystals, lines of beautiful crystals with a sequence of numbers that lit, that meant different things. They explained to me the 1 represents God. The 8 represents eternity and the universe. The 1, the 8 is 9. 9 is the highest number in the universe. There is no higher number than 9. Other numbers than that are just numbers that are multiplying numbers. The zeros multiply everything. So the 3, 6, 9 numbers were so important because if you look at the 1 and the 8, when you add the 0, that represents everything. The 108, if you understand the 108, which interlinks with the 369, you understand how the whole universe works. Because not only does it give you the understanding of the universe, it gives you the understanding of space and time. In other words, if we didn't have these exact numbers, our Earth would not exist because everything comes to the 108. The 108 divided by 6 is 18. You're back to the core numbers again, the 1 and the 8. Okay? So the important thing that people have to know here is that these are physical distances. If people get my book, I explain them. It's a long sequence of explaining it, but it's the explanation of the 3, the 6, and the 9, the numbers that Tesla laid out, and they're very, very interesting. So that part is amazing. But now we're back to the time where I'm begging to stay for my life. And the 4th or the 3rd time she said it to me, the little beautiful spirit that approached me said, "Dad, you must return." And I didn't know if she was talking about my son. I didn't know my son was in my wife's belly at home. My wife was pregnant while I was at the show in Tucson, and he was about to be born. He was going to be born in September, but this was February. So my wife wouldn't come to the show because, of course, people go through morning sickness, and hers wasn't that good. It was tough. So I thought she was talking about that. And the angel that gave me the numbers gave me 2 numbers very important, my personal numbers. He said 3 was your life path number. I had no idea what that meant. He said 66 is your alert number. I knew what that meant. I had that 66 number with me my whole life. Not 3 6s, just 66. That 66 appeared to me throughout my whole life whenever something good was going to happen or something bad was going to happen. Didn't have to mean it was bad. It would mean it was a big event about to come into my life. She said to me, "Dad, you must return." And next thing I know, I'm in a vortex at this time now, going back, being pulled back and drawn back. I'm being drawn back into my body, and I'm feeling like a rag doll being pulled through space the opposite way. Not as good a feeling as going. And next thing I know, I'm back in my body, and I take a breath that I have no idea how long I was not breathing. My doctors estimate sometime it might have been as much as an hour. I had no air in my body. I breathed in through my throat, and I remember taking that breath, you know, if you were almost going to drown underwater, and you take that first gulp of air so deep. I took it in so deep and so strong, that's the only thing that moved in my body when I woke. I'm awake now, fully awake. The only thing that moved in my body was my throat. I'm laying on my pillow. I can't move my arms and my legs. Nothing is moving. I'm in pain again. I feel nothing but hurt from that miserable viral thing, whatever it was. After 10, maybe 15 minutes, to me, it felt like an eternity went by, but I'm sure it was only 10 or 15 minutes. I'm having tingles running through me. Like if you ever laid on your leg for a long period of time and everything was asleep and dead, and now the blood starts flowing and rushing again, it becomes live and you can start to move it again. That finally happened, and I had enough strength. I reached over and grabbed the phone and hit the operator. I sent one of my people over take me to the hospital. And that was it. I passed out again and went to the hospital, and they, I couldn't tell anybody there. I was so afraid. I didn't know what to talk about. I didn't know what even to say, because I've never heard of anything like this before. It wasn't until I got home and went to my own doctor. Now, when I went to my own doctor, I called up, made an emergency appointment to see him. And he said, "What are you here for?" I says, "Well, I was afraid to even say it to him at first. I said, "It's for examination, I haven't seen you in 6 months or so." He's been my doctor. I'm in my 40s now, right? I'm 42, I think, in 44. Yeah, I'm 42 years old now. He's been my doctor since I was a paramedic in my early 20s. He's been my doctor for 20 years, Dr. Vasquez. I says, after he gave me my examination, I says, "Can I talk to you?" He says, "Well, is it physical?" He says, "Or is it something private you'd want to talk to me about?" I said, "I'd like to talk to you in private." So he takes me to his office, and I just let it out. I told him the whole story, everything exactly what happened. And he said, "Bill, we have to go in the examination room one more time." Then he starts breaking out the machinery. He brought out the electrocardiogram. He brought out something else that he was doing, and he was reading and taking it. The old days, the electrocardiogram had the tape that used to come out of it, and he was going like this and reading the tape. And he looks at me and he says, "Bill, when did you have your heart attack?" I said, "Dr. Vasquez, I never had a heart attack. I never had a heart attack." He said, "Well, your heart has severe damage to it. It appears as though it stopped." And then he's looking and looking and looking. He brings me back to the room. So this is after I told him the story, laid it all out. He said, "Bill, I want you to relax now and just listen to me." He says, "I believe what you had what they call a near-death experience." Because after that, he sent me for a whole slew of tests. That's where I wound up having to go for my sleep apnea. Everything was being taken care of. That my blood was being taken care of because of my sugar was off. That's when I found out I had severe hypoglycemia, and I almost died the second time in that operation just a year ago I told you about. Well, he said to me this. He said, "You told me the same exact story that 7 of my patients told me." He said, "A little variation, but almost exactly the same. They all remember floating above their body. They all remember entering the tunnel. And the ones that got to heaven were the ones that usually had the longer period of time out." He says, because in the hospitals today, when people die in the hospital, they get defibrillated right away. And they might experience the first part of the near-death experience where they're just hovering above the body and feeling all that love, from God and everything. They might have traveled a little bit, but then they get pulled back in. So I think that's why a lot of NDEers don't get a full experience like that. And then you hear some NDEers that's been out 45 minutes, an hour and 15 minutes, long periods of time that shouldn't have come back. They should have never been here. They say the mind doesn't work after 6 months, 6 minutes being dead. So, so it was good to hear that someone else had this experience. So I felt at ease. I felt much better, to say the least. Plus, then he gave me a couple of books to read. And he said, he gave me the first book. It was, this is 1994, so there wasn't as many books out then, but he told me about, he didn't give it to me, he told me to buy it. He said, buy a book, Saved by the Light, with Dana Brankley. And I read that book, and he gave me 2 other books to read. And it was very, very, very interesting because I could see in 1 or 2 of them, they said the same thing I said when you got there. I said, "I'm home. I'm finally home." The same words. And that's the story.
Wow, that is a very profound experience. Oh my gosh. And
Yeah,
so many details because
yeah.
like your doctor said, sometimes people don't get to stay for so long, and you got to stay for some time and
You
go
were
and
sent back. Some people just popped in. I was physically sent back. They wanted me back for a reason. Now I know what it was. And you might want to put this in because when the little angel said to me before she left, I forgot that one part. Before I left and came back, she said, I am 6 of 6. My 6 of 6 was my alert sign. In other words, watch out for the 6 of 6. She was telling me. My daughter was born in the year 2000 on the 6th month and the 6th day. My little girl is just going to be 24 in 2 days. She'll be 24 on June the 6th, 6th month of her 6th day. So I think she was alerting me. I think, of course, you don't remember because we don't bring the memory over with us. But I'm sure in my heart and soul, I'm sure she's the one that sent me back. That's the reason why my life path wasn't complete. There was so much more to do, you know?
are you were you afraid of death before this happened?
Before this happened, I was a lot more afraid of death than I am today. That's home. Someday I'm going home again. You know, the beauty about it is that is our home. That's when you're in heaven, and like, I'll keep calling it heaven. Maybe some people want to call it something else, and that's all right, and that's okay. But when you're in heaven and you're in that love, and you're communicating with 50 souls at one time, and acknowledging every bit of it, it's like you're on you're on a total different life force. It's magnificent, and you feel nothing but love from each other. There's nothing like this. Selfishness doesn't exist. Well, none of these little silly things that we have over here exist on that side. Just the important stuff: the love, the unity, the service, the kindness. And I believe at one point, when we reach our levels, we might all become guides for other new spirits or younger spirits. That's why they call young and old spirits. Like he's an old spirit. You hear that from people sometimes. Well, then I hear the other side, he's a very, very young spirit, as you can tell by people's wisdom sometimes.
Well, I think we have a lot to learn from your experience, and you've actually created a couple books so that we could
Yes.
do just that. Tell me about your books.
Well, my latest book that I've written is called the Ninth Level of Enlightenment, the Wisdom of the Light. There's an ambulance I have on the cover there. It shows the universe in the background at nighttime. So that brought me back to the physical story. And the book was written and published by Christian Faith Publishers. And it's doing very, very well. I have a new documentary movie coming out in December of this year, 24, What Every Soul Knows, simply remembering the things we forgot. And I've been very busy with the podcasts. I have another book called Choices, but that's one I actually wrote for myself, and I did publish it. It's out there, but I never have it edited or anything. So it's got a few little editing errors. But this one was professionally done. This one is my current book, and it's got the beauty about this book. This book doesn't only tell the whole life story, it tells my pre-life story. Now that's where I show how we're connected to the other side our whole life. So the first 49 pages in this book links us up to heaven through our lifetime. It's beautiful. Like, I'll give you an example. One time um, I was in Bangkok, Thailand. My ex-wife and myself were there on a business trip. I used to do trade shows all over the country with the jewelry I was explaining. And we were in there on a business trip and making it a vacation at the same time. We were kidnapped and taken. and almost killed. So, and if it wasn't for a miracle, what I'm going to stress to you and say to you right now, there's miracles that happen in this book up front. It's so exciting that it's quite amazing. Some of the things that I went through growing up, actually, you know, prior to the near-death experience. So it's very interesting. So I'll tell you, I want to give them my email, and I want to give them my website first, and then I'll answer all your questions if you have any more. Um, my website is billtortorella.com, the correct spelling, BILLTORTOR again, ELLA.com. So it's billtortorella.com. That's my website. My Gmail, now this is important because people could contact me because I love to answer their questions, is billtortorella@gmail.com. So it's my name at gmail.com again.
Bill, this has been amazing for me, and I really appreciate you coming on. If you had one thing or one lesson, what would you say is your biggest takeaway from all this? I know there's so much, but if you could say one thing to the audience, what would it be?
Kindness. One act of kindness begets another, and another, and another. And it grows and grows and grows. But there's not only one, I have to put a couple in, but I won't make it long. Service. That's helping as much as you can. Now, I think this experience happened to me because of all those years that I put in as the paramedic. And, you know, I experienced so much of that service trying to save people every day. I had death in my hands every day, saving people over and over and over again with, you know, people having heart attacks and dying and bringing some of them back, which I was so fortunate in, you know, to experience some of that stuff, you know, doing CPR and actually physically doing CPR on someone that's dead for 30 minutes and bringing them back to life. So kindness, service, forgiveness, those are all in one under service in the principles. It's so important, those three. So I believe that would be my most important on that end. Yeah. And, you know, if you ask me a question, because a lot of people ask me, what is God or who is God? We all become part of God while we're there. We all are part of his love. So God is love.
That is just so beautiful. So we're all kind of collectively, we make
Right.
up God.
Collectively, we become part of God, which is one beautiful. We're not God. There's only one God, but God's for everyone. You know, there's one God. And but while we're there, we live in his light. So we have the feeling of God. And that's unexplainable here. That part I could not explain. No one could ever explain until you get there. Because that is the most beautiful thing in the world. And that's why I fought so hard not to come back when I was on the other side. I remember them over and over telling me, "You must return, you must return." No, no, please don't send me back.
I hear that a lot. It must be wonderful over there.
Yeah, it is. It is. There's nothing like it.
Thank you, Bill, for sharing your story. I've really enjoyed this.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you for being here. I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you being here and supporting my channel. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider subscribing if you enjoy near-death experiences and other spiritually transformative stories. It helps the algorithm know that this information is useful and push it out to more people. And that's the goal, to get as many people to know that we are eternal spiritual beings and that we never die. Our bodies might die, but our essence will never die. And I want people to live with less fear. Let's all spread the word, like, comment, Subscribe, share, hit that little notification bell so you get all the notifications when my videos post. Thank you for all of your support. I'm sending love to you.